Move to Preller, we were kind of mentioning him earlier. This offseason, I feel like, a lot of fans were bummed out, including me, about them not getting a left fielder, a real left fielder. But with that said, when you're really looking over his offseason and what he did and the areas that he did improve, what grade would you really actually give him, not looking at it just from the outfield standpoint, but looking at it from the whole team as a whole standpoint?
It's a really good question. It's hard for me to say anything higher than a C, and I'd base it on Melvin. That's where it
Okay.
starts. I think without Melvin, it would be lower than that. At best a C minus. I agree with you. I think that he made improvements to his roster, and he did so sensibly without any seismic shifts or without any crazy cost constraints moving forward. But the problem with me saying that, I think he did it effectively. But the only reason he was playing from that hand is because of the hands he had played previously. It's all his doing. He's been here for 8 years. It's his doing. So, and I credit Peter Seidler for spending the way they're going to spend, which is in the top 5 essentially in baseball. They're going to be over $200 million when it comes to CBT. They'll probably push the 230 number, that CBT overall number. But, I think Luke Voit is the best addition, assuming his health. I think the bullpen pieces are helpful. We'll see. I think the bullpen pieces are nice. I like Nick Martinez. We'll see. Matt Beatty, I think, is helpful as, a 4th or 5th type outfield player. But we're not talking about changes that are really changing the trajectory of wins and losses over the course of a year. If we're being honest, you don't acquire Luke Voit and all of a sudden the FanGraph zip projections change you 3.5 wins. It's not how this works. Now, if he plays like he did in 2020 and he stays healthy and hits 37 home runs, then maybe, yeah, Luke Voigt's the difference between getting you over the hump and not being over the hump. So, I think my issue right now with AJ Preller is just the overall construction of the roster. It's not his offseason. It's the overall construction of the roster.
Right.
Now, we'll see how it plays out. It's hard to be overly critical heading into a year because we don't know how it plays out, but it just feels like the one injury to Tatis really put a gaping hole in the entirety of the roster that is a little bit unfortunate. That's not AJ Preller's fault that Fernando Tatis Jr. got hurt, but it is his fault for the state of this roster heading into this year if they're not able to compete with teams like the Dodgers or the Giants. And that remames to be seen. We'll see what happens here over the next handful of months. It's not the worst offseason in the world, but it's certainly not the best either, right? What would you say?
Mine, I'm being a little nicer. I'd give him like a B minus because I'm taking into account, right, the Melvin hire, but because of the Melvin hire, he went out of the box on that, give him credit on that. But with the Melvin hire also came hiring multiple managers that are now coaches on his staff, hiring Ruben Niebla, and now you're pretty much adding Mackenzie Gore to be, if you're thinking about it, because Gore was not going to impact the team the way it looks like he will at some point this year, because it looks like, he's worked with Niebla. So the Niebla hiring, I think, is huge. So you have to add that, not just the Melvin hire. And then I get what you're saying with the Luke Voit and the whole win total really not shooting up, but he did fill that DH spot with someone that might be able to stay more healthy, only playing DH. You add Luis Garcia. I know he's gotten hurt, but you have him, Robert Suarez for the bullpen. They did, add some depth in the outfield with Beatty. I know it was just recently, but I guess I'm looking at it more of, okay, at least he filled most of the holes. Now, it wasn't, they didn't go get a big guy. They didn't go get Castellanos, didn't go get Bryant, didn't go get Suzuki. I know you love him. They didn't get any of them. But in terms of the holes, I didn't even mention Alfaro, and he looks, I know it's spring training, but that looks like a better option than Caratini backup catcher-wise. And Nola doesn't stay healthy, so that might come into play. So I guess I'm just coming from the whole positional viewpoint.